I'm going to get right into the message. The reality of our existence is that we are either fighting for the spirit of Messiah or the spirit of anti-Messiah. That's the reality of this battle that we're in, okay? This message is called Christmas Isn't Pagan. Hislop lied, okay? So let me just get right into this, all right? Throughout Israel's history, God's people often mingled their worship of the one true God with customs and traditions borrowed from pagan religions. The term for this is syncretism. Syncretism is the spirit of anti-Messiah. It came through the vehicle of the Catholic Church for thousands of years, but it's also in Protestantism. It's everywhere you look, syncretism. And we need to be fighting it all the time. In fact, we need to be Protestants against it on a constant basis in order to be a holy people, in order to be a people who are worshiping in spirit and in truth. We have to fight it, okay? So whenever syncretism happened, God spoke through his prophets to express his disfavor, even his hatred of this mingling of the holy and the profane, the sacred and the secular. In today's world, Christmas manifests the mingling of the holy and the profane, the sacred and the secular more than any other holiday. This is the time of year when these two opposing holidays come together and bam! You don't see it like anything else ever during the 12 months of the year. Okay? It used to be that nearly all Messianics did not keep Christmas and they weren't in favor of any other believers keeping it either, because they knew that Deuteronomy 12, 30 through 32 commands us to not use pagan customs and traditions in our worship. And they knew from history that nearly all of today's Christmas customs and traditions were borrowed from pagan idolatry. But lately, there's been a recent shift. In recent years, there's been a significant number of Messianics, most of them younger than me, but not all, have been saying that Christmas is not pagan. In fact, it's never been pagan. Some of these social media scholars will tell you that they personally do not celebrate it, but they don't have a problem with anyone else doing it. In fact, they encourage, if you want to, fine, no problem, go right ahead, it's okay. Why is this happening now, in this point in history? Why is it that practically every foundation of truth is seemingly being reversed in our day? Is there somehow a connection with the outright confusion of everything else that's going on today? I think so. Right is wrong, wrong is right, up is down, down is up, can't tell what a man is or a woman is. We live in crazy times. And now, syncretism isn't syncretism anymore. Or should I say that it's, at least not for Christmas, because now you hear that Hanukkah is pagan. Okay, what a switch! What a turnaround! Okay, it's kind of like the argument that you've heard for centuries that the law is no longer relevant. This recent shift of opinion among Messianics that syncretism is cool if that's your thing stems from an effort to debunk one author. His name is Alexander Hislop. He wrote a book called The Two Babylons. Okay, now Christmas isn't pagan is what they say. It's the new mantra. Christmas isn't pagan because Hislop lied. This is the new mantra of Messianics. Okay? Hislop's book was published in 1858, and it appeared in many editions in Great Britain and the U.S. In his book, Hislop cites ancient historical references to demonstrate that the Roman Catholic customs and traditions, including Christmas, were borrowed from pagan idolatry. And in 1966, there was an author by the name of Ralph Woodrow. He published a book called Babylon Mystery Religion. Woodrow's book was basically just a condensed version of Hislop's 330-page book without all of the hundreds of footnotes. I doubt very seriously if most of the social media scholars who have picked up this new mantra have ever read The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop or Mystery Babylon Religion by Ralph Woodrow. I have. I read them both in the 1990s. And there's 2 points I want to bring to your attention that you should keep in the forefront of your mind while we go through this study. Hislop had a passion to convey that all believers should cease from their syncretism. The entire book was an obvious effort to reveal the wickedness of syncretism. Hislop wanted believers to know so that they could purify their worship practices to Yahweh. Woodrow did not share that passion. After sharing his condensed version of Hislop's work, he concluded in his book, Mystery Babylon Religion, he concluded that it's okay. You don't want to disturb your family. Don't disturb your friends. Let them keep their customs and practices. In other words, let them continue in their sin of syncretism. Now here's the best illustration that I can give anyone of what syncretism is. Take a dog turd and roll it up in powdered sugar and sprinkle those pretty little colored sprinkles on it and call it a pastry. Okay, now you wouldn't eat it. Would you want to give that to your family and friends?
No.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay? So Ralph Woodrow, later on, after he writes Mystery Babylon Religion, he writes this other book to recant the claims that he made in his book, Babylon Mystery Religion. So in this second book, Woodrow stated that Hislop's claims were false. Another point of interest to keep at the forefront of your mind with this study is that with Woodrow's recantation, he expressed no personal remorse for helping to lead multitudes astray. Isn't that strange? Woodrow's former book, Babylon Mystery Religion, was widely popular among Protestants. The 1990 edition states that there were over 350,000 copies in print.
Of what?
And that was by the June of 1990. If Woodrow truly believed that his former book had misinformed and misled multitudes of Christians, why was there not a profuse apology in his later book? I think the character of these two men speaks for itself. So let's talk about Hislop's book. What about him? Did he lie, as Ralph Woodrow and some young Messianics are saying, or whoever this doctor was that you said you saw with the YouTube? He wasn't a young man, okay, but he's claiming that he lied, didn't he? Yeah. Did he lie, or did Hislop tell the truth? You know, we ought not to be bearing false witness against our neighbor. Dangerous. In the front flyleaf of the cover of Babylon Mystery Religion, in the Two Babylons. It's called the Two Babylons by Hislop. In the front flyleaf of the cover, Donald Gray Barnhouse, Doctor of Divinity, calls Hislop's book one of the great books in the Christian literature of apologetics. Barnhouse says that there is a wealth of material, this is a quote, a wealth of material in the footnotes, buttressing the facts brought forth in the argument. And in the back leaf of the cover, it says, this volume offers proof for every statement, including more than 260 original sources of facts, citing title and place and date of publication of each. There are footnotes galore documenting Hislop's sources throughout the book. You have to look hard to find a page without footnotes. In fact, to give you an idea of how many footnotes there are over 100 footnotes in just the first 27 pages. Hislop obviously documented his sources. So why are some people now claiming that he lied? Some are totally rejecting Hislop's work. Some even mock and ridicule him as if his entire work was nothing but nonsense. So here's the problem with Hislop. The main problem with Hislop's Two Babylons is his citing of sources. It's in his citings. Yes, Hislop meticulously cited his sources. But there's a difference between citing a source and manipulating the information in that source to support an erroneous claim, And that is what Ralph Woodrow accuses Hislop of doing. Okay, did you hear what I said? It's not that he got it wrong. It's just that he's being accused of manipulating the facts. Now, I personally, having read Hislop's book for myself, have a different take. I know how intuition into an historical matter can bring a person to a certain conclusion. And though no one else had put it in print before Hislop, he found evidence that demanded a verdict. Follow my logic. Practices and beliefs of ancient civilizations seem to have a common source to ancient Babylon. For example, Hislop noted the mother and child worship, goddess mother and god son, throughout all ancient civilizations. The common source is, of course, the prophecy given by God in Genesis 3:15 that says the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head. This is the first prophecy of a miracle virgin birth, Genesis 3:15. But the perversion of that prophecy, which makes the mother a goddess, finds its commonality in ancient Babylon. Hence, the later deification of Mary by the Catholic Church, calling her the Mother of God. Okay? No one else had ever put it in print before Hislop. Now, I'm going to ask you, does that make him a liar, or does it make him an insightful researcher? Apparently, the scholarly community now considers Hislop to be an unreliable source because of what they call sloppy scholarship. Did any of these social media scholars think to research other sources apart from the two Babylons by Alexander Hislop? You know, like go to an encyclopedia? Do some of them even not know? I mean, I want to say, do they even know what it is? Say encyclopedia. I'm sorry, it's so insulting. But honestly, you call yourself a scholar, why don't you look at an encyclopedia? Hislop is not the source. What if Hislop's claims can be verified from other reliable sources? Would all this then be a case of bearing false witness against one's neighbor? Yes. So let's look at the encyclopedias. This is from Encyclopedia Britannica. Hislop didn't write it. In polytheistic Rome, December 25th was a celebration of the unconquered sun, marking the return of longer days. It followed Saturnalia, a festival where people feasted and exchanged gifts. The church in Rome began celebrating Christmas on December 25th during the reign of Constantine. Here's from the New World Encyclopedia. Besides its Christian roots, many Christmas traditions have their origins in pagan winter celebrations. Examples of winter festivals that have influenced Christmas include the pre-Christian festivals of Yule and Roman Saturnalia. By the way, Yule is still celebrated by witches on December 25th today. The New World Encyclopedia goes on to say this is how Christmas came to be celebrated on the Roman holiday of Saturnalia. And it was from the pagan holiday that many of the customs of Christmas had their roots. Then it says, the feast of Sol Invictus on December 25th was a sacred day in the religion of Mithraism, which was widespread in the Roman Empire. Its god, Mithras, the god of light, was a solar deity of Persian origin, identified with the sun. It displayed its unconquerability as Sol Invictus when it began to rise higher in the sky following the winter solstice. Hence, December 25th was celebrated as the festival of Sol Invictus. It goes on to say, the followers of Mithras were eventually forced to convert to Christianity under these laws that prohibited the worship of pagan gods, and in spite of their conversion, they adapted many elements of their old religion into Christianity. In other words, they didn't make any changes. They said, oh, we can't worship him? Oh, okay, we'll worship Jesus with the same stuff we've been doing towards Mithra. All right? Just change the name and keep on moving. Okay? So they adapted many elements of their old religions into Christianity, and among these was the celebration of the birth of Mithras on December 25th, which was now observed as the birthday of Jesus. Is anybody out there getting this? Hislop didn't write this. It goes on to say in the New World Encyclopedia, during the Reformation, Protestants, by the way, that means Protestants condemned Christmas celebration as trappings of popery. They call it trappings of popery and rags of the beast. The beast was a term among those who were not Catholic, those who protested against the Roman Church. They called that the beast. Okay? Now, incidentally, as a side note, Christmas was illegal in the U.S. until 1836. Did y'all know that?
Yes.
And in Scotland, it was not an official holiday until 1958. And it was for the very same reasons, because they saw it as trappings of popery and rags of the beast. Now, here's from the World History Encyclopedia. Several of the traditions today strongly associated with Christmas have a very long history indeed, even predating the Christmas celebration itself. Early Christianity sought to distance itself from pagan practices, and so later Roman emperors closed down ancient sacred sites. And they prohibited rituals and ended sporting games that had once honored pagan gods. The 12 days of Christmas, by the way, come, and I'll be talking about that in just a moment. There was 12 days of gladiatorial games that took place during the winter solstice. And that's where we get the 12 days of Christmas. Where the blood that was being shed was a propitiating unto Saturn. Okay. Getting ahead of myself. So, let's see. I want to make sure we cover this really well. I don't want to miss anything. Early Christianity sought to distance itself. Blah, 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 blah. However, changing the habits of ordinary people was a different matter. It was difficult. The pagan festival of Saturnalia had been particularly popular among the people, and its traditions that had endured for a millennium were, in many cases, held on to. And they transferred them to the new festival called Christmas. All right? Now, that's from secular sources. Here's from mainstream Christian sources. Erdman's Publishing Company in Grand Rapids, Michigan is about as mainstream Christian as a publishing company can be. And here is what Erdman's Handbook to the History of Christianity, published in 1977, says. The Christian church took over many pagan ideas and images. From sun worship, for example, came the celebration of Christ's birth on the 25th of December, the birthday of the sun. Saturnalia, the Roman winter festival of December, provided the merriment, the gift-giving, and the candles typical of later Christmas holidays. And on the same page is a photo of a 4th century mosaic that depicts Christ as the sun god mounting the heavens in his chariot. Here's from Roman Catholic sources. You know, the Catholics tell them themselves, because they think they have the authority to do these things, so they don't mind telling you. Roman Catholic sources tell you this. Roman Catholic author Greg Dews, in his book Catholic Customs and Traditions, they even call him Catholic. Catholic Customs and Traditions writes the following. The winter solstice occurred on December 25th on the Julian calendar and became the popular date for Christmas. As noted in the Origin of Advent, the 5-day pagan harvest festival of Saturnalia, devoted to Saturn, the god of agriculture, occurred shortly before the winter solstice, and it was celebrated with gift exchanges, feasting, and excesses. By the way, Saturn required child sacrifice, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, about what happened in the ancient times. This thing is just filthy, okay? Anyway, here we are. A mixture and even confusion of the sacred and secular characterizes the Christmas season today. And by the way, that's from Catholic sources too. The origin of Santa Claus is a fascinating and deliberate mixture of a bishop, saint, Father Christmas, Christmas man, and the Norse mythological god Thor. The Norse god Thor, elderly, jolly, god of war, with white hair and beard, friend of the common people, living in the Northland, traveling through the sky in a chariot pulled by goats, and as god of fire, he was partial to chimneys and fireplaces. Most Christian traditions associated with evergreens and trees are related somehow to pre-Christian practices. Teutonic and Scandinavian peoples worship trees and decorated houses and barns with evergreens as the new year to scare away demons. So in the rest of this book, Dews freely admits that virtually all Roman Catholic customs and traditions were borrowed from pagan idolatry, and thereby confirming that Hislop's general claims were true. So, as you can see, we don't need Hislop to prove the pagan origins of Christmas. Mainstream encyclopedias, mainstream Christian publishers, and even Roman Catholic authors all agree that the customs and traditions of Christmas were borrowed from pagan idolatry. All agree. The holy and the profane, the sacred and the secular were blended together in a lukewarm mixture. And that is the very thing that the Almighty commanded his people not to do in Deuteronomy 12:30 through 32. Now here's a wise sentiment from Dr. Daniel Botkin. Here's what he says, because this is very important as we close this part of the teaching. He says, I don't think that my shunning of Christmas makes me better than others. There are probably some Christmas celebrating Christians who please the Lord more than I do. Christians who excel in so many other areas but are uninformed. They're just ignorant about the paganism in Christmas. And here's my final note to this. Syncretism is a dog turd. It's rolled up in powdered sugar. And the enemy is laughing while the whole world eats it. This is a difficult time of year. It's important that all brothers and sisters come to the knowledge of the truth about this holiday. And it's painful enough without us beating it over their heads. Walk humbly. Walk gently with your fellow man. Speak the truth boldly, but do it in love. It's very important. Okay? Now, I do have a second part to this. That's why we didn't do the readings, because I want to share this with you as well. This is an article that I wrote some years ago from my research outside of Alexander Hislop. Okay? I call this Christmas. It's for the children. It's for the children. First of all, Malachi. What do we read in Malachi chapter 3, verse 6? I am Yahweh, I change not. Okay? And then, of course, Deuteronomy 12, verse 30 says, do not inquire after their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. And let's remember Jeremiah 16:19. Jeremiah 16:19 says, surely our fathers have inherited lies. Deuteronomy 16:22 tells us, neither shall you set up any image which Yahweh your Elohim hates. You ever been to a church where they, right next to the altar, right next to the, the bema, or the what do they call it? I'm sorry. It's not called a bema in a church. The pulpit. See, why did it say that? Right next to it, right there, you got a big tree sitting right there. Don't set up anything the Lord hates. Thus have Matthew 15:6. Thus have you made the commandments of Elohim of none effect by your tradition. Tradition. It's my tradition. What if it's against the Word of God? Get rid of it. Luke 15:16 says, for that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of God. Now the term that's widely used and yet not well understood is Christmas. You know what Christmas is? Mass of Christ. What is that? What is that? If you talk to somebody who's Catholic and they really know the Mass, they'll tell you what it is. Okay? The Mass is the re-sacrificing of Jesus. It's not figurative. In fact, if you don't believe in the doctrine of transubstantiation, you're considered a heretic. Here's the deal. The priest has the hocus-pocus power to call the Spirit of Jesus down. Literally. And he fills the bread. That's why it's called a host. Okay? And then he does this. What's that? That's the breaking of Jesus. It's the sacrifice of the Son of God. Why do they do this? And it's done every day, by the way. Every day. There's a Mass said every day somewhere in the world. Every day. Why are they doing this? Because it's considered the highest prayer, the greatest sacrifice to sacrifice. And why are they doing it also? Because they're doing it for the dead. Masses are said for dead relatives. Nobody goes to heaven. This is what they teach. Okay? Back in the day, they probably don't say this anymore, but before Vatican II, anybody who wasn't Catholic, sorry. You're lost. You're going to hell. Period. There's no salvation outside of the Catholic Church. Done. Over. All right? But if you are a Catholic, and you're a good Catholic, it doesn't mean you're going to go to heaven. Not right away. You're going to go to a place called purgatory. Now, only very few people go straight to heaven. Only those the church canonizes as saints. All right? If they canonize you, then you're right there. Okay? But everybody else goes to purgatory. Now, do you want your dead relatives to be in purgatory? Because it's not the best place to be. No. So what do? You pray. You pay for masses. You pay for masses. And they do. People pay for masses to be said. The church makes money as they pay for masses. Hold your question, please. Okay? They pay for masses. All right? It's a money-making thing. And you might say, well, how many masses is it going to take? Well, I don't know. It's an uncertain thing. It could take who knows how many. You're just elevating them. Because they have to burn off whatever's got to be burned off in order for them to get to heaven. And you can help them by having masses said. Okay, is that what the Bible teaches? No, it does not. It teaches in Hebrews chapter 9, he died once. And the power of that one death sets us free. If you will confess your sins, you can be saved immediately. All right? So it's an abomination. And you're speaking that every time somebody says, Merry Christmas, okay? What they're really saying is, I am so happy that Christ is dead. Satan's such a sorry loser. I'm serious. That's what you're saying. Merry Christmas. Merry death of Christ. You're not talking about his birth. You're talking about the Mass, which is an abominable act. Keep God dead. Satan was defeated at the death and resurrection of the Messiah, but he is such a sorry loser. He wants to keep him dead. Messiah's dead with these perpetual re-sacrifices through the Mass. And it also weakens his power. It's like, what? That power isn't enough to do it once? Oh no, we have to do it every day. It's ridiculous. Now the whole world refers to Messiah's birth by mention of his perpetual death. How well he is the deceiver of the whole world. Revelation 12 tells us, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He does a good job, doesn't he? Another term that's not well understood is holiday. Webster's New Universal Unabridged Dictionary defines a holiday as a religious festival. A holy day. That's what it comes from. Now, Christmas is indeed a religious festival. Okay? And it's one in which a deity is being honored. But history shows us that long before it was ever Christ Mass, a deity had been honored at this season for literally thousands of years. The winter solstice celebration began shortly after the flood of Noah, when the Babylon Empire came into existence. The winter solstice held great importance for the pagans because of the prominence of the sun as the source of all life. And as winter came on, days got shorter and nights got longer. To the pagans, this meant that the sun was dying. And at the solstice, the sun seemed to be reborn as the days started getting longer again. Now, after the killing of Nimrod, Semiramis, his mother and wife, his widow, declared her dead son, husband, to be the sun god. And she also became mysteriously pregnant, claiming that the baby in her womb was Nimrod reincarnated, and that he was the seed of the woman. Where'd she get that idea? The promise from Genesis 3:15 was being passed down word of mouth. Everybody was waiting for that birth of that one who would deliver. And she claimed that he was it. All right. So from Nimrod, you get Tammuz. By the way, Tammuz means evergreen. And from this we get Molech and Baal and Sol, all these gods of the nations connected to the god. And also to the sun, also Saturn, who was called Chiyun and Remphan in Israel in ancient times when they were worshiping that god. Saturn was honored by the Romans with a week-long festival at the end of December known as Saturnalia. Saturn was the Roman god of time and harvest, which is why you can find him depicted with a scythe, like the Grim Reaper. Got a scythe in his hand. Ancient Israel followed the practice of the pagans in honoring this deity with child sacrifice, when to them he was known as Moloch and Chion. Think about it. What is Easter all about? Fertility. So you have an orgy in the spring, and what happens 9 months later? You got unwanted babies. What do? You get rid of them. You throw them in the flames to Saturn, because he requires it. If you're going to have a good year, a good harvest, you better give up a baby. Well, I'll just give up this one that I just had. Although Romans quit offering child sacrifice early on, gladiators spilled blood in the arena during Saturnalia in December. Saturnalia was a religious celebration, and everybody understood that the blood spilled was an offering to Saturn. And this is from Johann D. Fuss from a book called Roman Antiquities. He said the gladiatorial shows were sacred to the god Saturn. Also from an ancient author by the name of Ausonius, from a work called Eclogue, he wrote this: the amphitheater claims its gladiators for itself when at the end of December they propitiate with their blood the sickle-bearing son of heaven, Saturn. And this is from a Latin source, from Justus Lipsius. In a work, he wrote this: the gladiators fought on the Saturnalia, and they did so for the purpose of appeasing and propitiating Saturn. Now, despite the blood sacrifices, this season was a time of feasting and merriment. All of the beloved traditions of this modern holiday season come directly from Saturnalia. Let me name them off for you. 12 days of Christmas. Those are the days of the gladiatorial bloodshed for Saturn. The treats left out for Santa also derive from an offering made to Saturn. A decorated tree, Tammuz, with lights and balls. The lights on the tree were originally the burning fat from children sacrificed. God, it's gross, guys. The balls were originally the decapitated heads of children. The carolers were originally nude singers engaging in licentiousness in the streets. Fa la 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 la. Hidden in plain view, the god Saturn is in the guise of three familiar characters in our modern times. Here they are: Father Time, the Grim Reaper, and Santa Claus. In ancient depictions of Father Time, he can be seen as an old man with a clock and the ever-present skeeve. On one side is a line of children in sacks representing the years past, and on the other side, a line of children heavily shrouded representing the years to come. And why are they shrouded? They were shrouded just as the children were before they were thrown in the flames, so that parents would not know the exact moment when their child would scream in the flames to Saturn. The Grim Reaper is merely another version of Father Time as he reaps his bleak harvest of souls. Now this is easy to see, but what about this old Nick guy? What about Santa Claus? Jolly old Nick, another guise for the bloodthirsty God who desires the sacrifice of your children. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. As children, we come to learn that Santa has been around for a long time. Santa knows everything about you. He knows everything about your parents. He knows everything about your grandparents. In fact, he knows everything about everybody all the time. Every ancestor for as long as you can remember. Santa knows it all. He's a huge figure in the imagination of every child who learns about him. He will reward you for good, or perhaps withhold reward if you're not. What does even the little baby Jesus have on this guy? Santa has the goods, and every kid knows it. This, of course, is tantamount to blasphemy, since these deifying attributes belong to Yahweh and Yahweh alone. Somebody who knows all. Saturn, did I say it wrong again? Santa has stolen the heart and soul of every child away from the honor and worship that is due the one and only true God. Every time parents put it in their head the fantasy of Santa Claus. Incidentally, Webster's 9th New Collegiate Dictionary states that Old Nick is just another name for the devil. Some say it's for the children. Yeah, it sure is. It's always been about sacrificing your kids. And so long as people continue with this Christ Mass, this Saturnalia, the souls of children will continue to be sacrificed on the altar to Saturn. Spiritual blindness and deafness takes hold when we're kids. And when we're adults, we then continue with the traditions, passing on our own spiritual blindness and deafness to the next generation of children. It's for the children. What do you want to do? Take away my Christmas? What are you doing? I've lost friends over this time of year. People I thought were friends, because when this came up, oh man, they ran faster than you could say Merry Christmas. Happened last year. In fact, I lost somebody over Hanukkah because he was putting trash out about Hanukkah being pagan. And I said, brother, that's false. We're not friends anymore. He cut off from me. Yet another generation who is blind and deaf with the message that's given, come out of her, my people. Come out of Babylon. Stop keeping Christmas. Stop practicing syncretism. What do you mean? You got to be crazy. Give up Christmas? Today's parents are yesterday's children, who in turn were sacrificed by their parents on the very same altar. Without the intervening work of the Holy Spirit, nobody would ever break free from the strongholds in their minds, in their souls. Jeremiah 16:19 says, surely our fathers have inherited lies. And although many have come to know that paganism is at the heart of this season, here's what they do. Well-meaning Christian leaders want to continue with their traditions of Christ Mass. Some will even go so far as to say that they know all this. I know all that. Matter of fact, when I was 8 years old, my brother told me, yeah, we kept Christmas. I was raised in a Catholic family, okay? We kept Christmas. And at 8 years old, I asked, and he said, oh, yeah, but it's okay. It's all pagan, but it's been Christianized. Oh, you mean you took a dog turd and rolled it in powdered sugar and put sprinkles on it? But that was supposed to appease me. It came up later. It always does. It comes back around, and then you have to realize it and think about it again. So people will do this. They'll say, I know all about that. And somehow that makes their practices acceptable in Yahweh's sight. How is that? The problem with that logic is that pagans did not know the truth. Pagans were not a people called by the name of Yahweh. Christians cannot say the same. If ignorance is no excuse, then how is full knowledge of the facts an excuse? Acts 17:30 says, truly then, having overlooked these times of ignorance, Elohim now commands all men everywhere to repent. He knows everybody's ignorant, but when you come to the knowledge of the truth, it's time to repent. When one knows better, they ought to do better. To know that Christ Mass was originally a pagan holiday and that all the rituals are identical to ancient pagan rites that honored Saturn, and yet to claim exemption from sin because you know, is extremely inconsistent. By honoring Saturn through our practices, we dishonor Yahweh. Matthew 6:24, no one is able to serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will cleave to the one and despise the other. Saturn, of all false deities, had the attributes most similar to Satan himself. Christ Mass is honor given to Satan. And Saturn is an evil satanic deity. It is his holiday in a very beautiful disguise. Ask any witch. Even ask a Satanist. They're keeping it too. Imagine a king who didn't care where his food came from. And I've already expressed this idea. I don't care where it comes from, just make it taste good. Participation in pagan traditions dishonors Yahweh, the one we say we love and serve. Yahweh is calling for his people who are called by his name to come out of Babylon, the false religious system. Revelation 18:4. The time is now to return to him in all our ways, choosing his paths. Remember these verses. Jeremiah 6:16. Yahweh said, stand in the ways and see and ask for the ancient paths. Ancient is eternal, by the way. where the good way is, and walk in it, and find rest for your souls. And what do the people say? We will not. We will not walk in it. Jeremiah 3, 20 through 22 as we close. Indeed, as a wife betrays her husband, so have you betrayed me, O house of Israel, declares Yahweh. They have perverted their way. They have forgotten Yahweh, their Elohim. Return, O backsliding children. In 2 Corinthians 6, Paul tells us there is no unity between Belial. You cannot serve one. What agreement has Messiah with Belial? What part does a believer have with an unbeliever? What union has the dwelling place of Elohim with idols? For you are a dwelling place of the living Elohim. As he has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore come out from among them and be separate, says Yahweh, and do not touch what is unclean, and I shall receive you. Revelation 18:4, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive her plagues. Now y'all ready for a pretty little song?
Yeah.
Can I have my guitar, please? You have a question? Did you want to ask a question now? Ask it now. You had a question earlier.
So you said,
Thank you.
so what was the place that you said the dead relatives are at? Or what was
The
that?
what is?
The
Purgatory.
Oh, purgatory is a place that was created by Catholicism where all souls go, and you stay there until you get cleansed by I guess a little bit of fire going on or something. But Catholics have masses said so that you can elevate your loved ones out faster. You know, and then they also have a fourth area when a baby is not baptized. They're innocent, but they can't go to heaven, so they send them to limbo. They go, limbo! Yeah, they spend all their days underneath that. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. You're not going to make a jokey about everything, right? Okay, here we go. This is a song by Andrew Gabriel Roth. He's the guy that wrote the Aramaic English New Testament. He took Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas and wrote a song called Have Yourself a Scary Day of Mithras. Okay, here we go. Starts off like this. Oh, shoot. Okay, it goes like this. Hang on a minute. Okay. Every winter we bite our tongue. The right words get stuck in our throat. 'Cause we know that Yeshua was really born round Sukkot. So, have yourself a scary day of Mithras. It's all pagan fun. Trim that tree, ignoring Jeremiah 10:1 through 6. Have yourself a scary day of Mithras. Gifts for Ashtarte. From now on, your blessings will be miles away. There you are as in olden times, happy golden times for Baal. All your friends cannot help but whine, standing in a line for sales. And through the years, the sinning just continues, right down till today. Then you'll tell your kids the Torah passed away. Still you wonder why we always say, Oy vey! Have yourself a scary day of Mithras. Hang that mistletoe. Wait for Odin's friend to give a ho ho ho. Oh no! Have yourself a scary day of Mithras. Praise the great I am. Love his Jewish son by feasting on some ham. If we're wise, we will understand just what
Adam Sandler said, tell your good friend Veronica he's hip Hanukkah instead. Now you know the reason for the season, and it's not what they think. Go tell Constantine that what he did sure stinks. Then come inside and spin a dreidel with us and have a drink. Yeah, I know the truth can take a lot out of you. So you spin the dreidel and I'll get the manischewitz. Happy Hanukkah!